I stood there, 7 months pregnant, divorce papers in my shaking hands, as 50 people recorded my public humiliation on their phones. My husband had just announced to a room full of strangers that I was just an ordinary art teacher from South Boston, while introducing his white mistress as his future. What none of them knew, what he didn't know, was that the broke art teacher he was discarding owned every square inch of the building they were standing in. Every single inch. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you how I destroyed him in front of 200 corporate executives, I'd love to know where you're watching from tonight. Drop your location in the comments. And if you believe that underestimating a woman who spent decades building an empire in secret is a very dangerous mistake, hit that subscribe button and get ready for one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. This is the story of how I went from public humiliation to total vindication in less than 6 months. This is about karma, patience, and the sweet, sweet taste of justice served ice cold in a corporate boardroom. So settle in, because you're about to hear how Sophia Monroe, art teacher, pregnant wife, and secret CEO, brought down the man who thought he was too good for her. The penthouse on Beacon Street looked like something from Architectural Digest. All glass walls, imported marble, and furniture that probably cost more than my annual teaching salary. I pressed my palm against the cool window, watching the Charles River glitter below, and tried to swallow the nausea creeping up my throat. 7 months pregnant with twins. Swollen feet. Lower back screaming. And trapped in the last place on earth I wanted to be. Sophia, darling, you look tired. That voice. Silk wrapped around barbed wire. I turned to face Marcus Chen, my husband's mother, dressed in what I'd learned to recognize as casual Chanel, which meant it only cost as much as a used car instead of a new one. Just pregnancy exhaustion, Catherine, I said, forcing a smile. The twins are active today. Her eyes, cold, calculating, shark-like, swept over my simple navy maternity dress from Target. I'd bought it on sale. $28. In this room, I might as well have been wearing rags. How practical, Catherine said, her lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. Though I do wonder if Marcus's colleagues will understand your aesthetic choices. These people are used to a certain level of sophistication. The babies kicked in unison, as if they could sense the venom. Girl, did she just call you unsophisticated? My best friend Jasmine appeared beside me, carrying 2 glasses of sparkling cider and radiating the kind of protective energy that made people think twice before messing with me. Because I'm pretty sure I just heard the most polite insult of the century. Catherine's smile tightened. How wonderful. More of Sophia's artistic friends. More of Sophia's ride-or-die friends who've known her since we were both broke college kids, Jasmine corrected smoothly. Speaking of which, where's Marcus? Shouldn't the father-to-be be here celebrating his family? That was the question burning a hole in my chest. Marcus had been distant for weeks. Cold. Distracted. When I'd suggested a small gathering at our modest apartment in South Boston, he'd insisted on this penthouse. My colleague's place, he'd said. More appropriate for the occasion. Appropriate for whom? He's handling details, I said, but the words tasted like lies. Through the crowd of Marcus's corporate friends, venture capitalists, tech executives, people who spoke in acronyms and stock options, I felt profoundly out of place. I was a high school art teacher. I smelled like paint thinner most days. I wore second-hand clothes and thought a fancy dinner meant Italian chain restaurants. At least, that's what they all thought. The truth. The truth was so much stranger. A champagne flute clinked against crystal. The room fell silent. And my husband stepped into the center of the gathering like a king addressing his court. Marcus Chen. 6'2". MIT educated. Partner at one of Boston's hottest venture capital firms. Designer suit. Perfect hair. The man I'd loved for 8 years. The man I barely recognized anymore. "Thank you all for being here," Marcus began, his voice carrying that smooth confidence that used to make my heart race. Now it just made my stomach turn. "We're here to celebrate new beginnings." He pulled out a manila envelope. My heart stopped. "And sometimes," Marcus continued, his eyes finally finding mine across the room, "new beginnings require difficult decisions." 50 faces turned toward me. Phones emerged from pockets. Cameras started recording. This wasn't a baby shower. This was an execution. "Sophia." He said my name like it was a stain he needed to wash out. "Come here, sweetheart." My feet moved without permission. The marble floor felt treacherous beneath my flats. Each step echoed in the cavernous space, magnified by the terrible silence of 50 people holding their breath. When I reached him, I searched his face for the boy I'd met in college. The struggling business student who'd promised me forever while we ate ramen noodles in my dorm room. I found only a stranger in an expensive suit. "You've been wonderful, Sophia. Truly." His voice carried to every corner of the room. Supporting me through business school. Believing in me when I had nothing. Working 2 jobs so I could focus on my MBA. The envelope was in my hands. My name. Lawyer's letterhead. Official seal. "But here's the truth," Marcus announced to our captive audience. "I've outgrown this version of my life. I need a partner who matches my ambitions, not someone who holds them back." My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. Divorce papers. Filed. Notarized. Official. "Just an art teacher from South Boston," Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. "Sweet. Simple. Ordinary. But I'm not ordinary anymore, Sophia. And I can't pretend to be satisfied with ordinary." The room spun. Catherine Chen wore an expression of grim satisfaction. And then the door opened. She entered like she owned the place. Tall. Blonde. Sharp angles and sharper suit. Victoria Lancaster. I'd met her once at a company event. She was everything I wasn't. White, corporate, ruthless, polished to a lethal shine. Marcus reached for her hand. The gesture was more brutal than any words. "Victoria and I," Marcus announced, triumph ringing in every syllable, "represent the future. The kind of power couple that actually matters in this city. Real partnership. Real ambition." Something shattered inside my chest. Around the room, phones lifted higher. Recording. Capturing. My tears. My shock. My devastation becoming entertainment for strangers. "Sign the papers, Sophia," Marcus said, his voice softening into something almost gentle, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. The babies will have everything they need. But we both know you can't give me what I need anymore." I stared at the papers. At the man I'd loved. At the woman who'd taken my place. "You're right," I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange. Distant. Like it belonged to someone else. "I can't give you what you need." I signed. Black ink on white paper. 8 years ending in a signature. Marcus smiled. Actually smiled. "Thank you for understanding. This is better for everyone." I looked up at him. At his perfect hair and perfect suit and perfect new girlfriend. "You know what's funny, Marcus?" "What's that?" "You never asked about my mother." His brow furrowed. "Your mother? Sophia, what does that have to do with?" "You never asked what she did before she died. You just assumed, didn't you? Art teacher's daughter. Must have been poor. Must have been nobody." Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty. "My mother," I continued, my voice growing stronger, was Evelyn St. James. Silence. The name hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Catherine Chen's face went white. That's not possible, Marcus stammered. Evelyn St. James founded Titan Holdings, I finished. Yes, she did. Under her maiden name, before she married my father and became Evelyn Monroe. Before she decided to raise me away from all this corporate Shark Tank garbage. Before she taught me that character matters more than status. I turned to face the room. 50 shocked faces. 50 phones still recording. Titan Holdings owns 40% of Boston's commercial real estate. Including this building. Including the building where Marcus works. Including about half the properties represented by the people in this room. Victoria's face had gone from smug to calculating to pale in the span of 30 seconds. When my mother died 2 years ago, I continued, she left everything to me. In trust. Managed by lawyers I've never met, designed to protect the fortune from exactly the kind of people who would marry someone for their money. I touched the simple pearl necklace around my throat. My mother's. The only jewelry she ever wore. These pearls. Worth more than everything in this room combined. 17th century. Medici collection. My mother wore them because she liked the irony. A queen pretending to be simple. Just like I pretended to be ordinary. Marcus's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. The best part. I smiled. It felt like ice forming over my lips. The absolute best part. You're not just divorcing me, Marcus. You're divorcing your boss. What? It came out as a whisper. Titan Holdings just acquired controlling interest in Pinnacle Ventures. Your firm. The deal closed yesterday. I'm now majority shareholder of the company that employs you. The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Gasps. One woman actually laughed. A sharp, shocked bark of sound. Marcus grabbed my arm. Sophia, wait. Let's talk about this. I didn't know. I pulled away gently. Carefully. Making sure everyone could see how calm I was. You're right about one thing, Marcus. You did outgrow our marriage. Congratulations. I turned to Catherine, who looked like she was watching her entire world collapse. Mrs. Chen. Thank you for hosting. Send me the bill for the party. I'll make sure it's covered. Then I turned to Victoria, who'd been silent through the entire revelation. Ms. Lancaster. I believe you're Senior Director of Corporate Strategy at Pinnacle Ventures. She nodded, her throat working. Not anymore. Consider this your termination notice. Effective immediately. Ethics violation. Fraternization with a married employee. You'll receive your severance package within the week. You can't, she started. I can. And I am. I walked toward the door. Jasmine fell in step beside me, her arm linking through mine. One more thing, I said, turning back to face Marcus one last time. The divorce. I'm going to fight it. Not because I want you back. Because I want you to remember every single day that you had everything and threw it away for a woman in a designer suit. The door closed behind us. In the hallway, I made it exactly 5 steps before my knees buckled. Jasmine caught me. Holy shit, she breathed. Holy shit, Sophia. That was. I think I'm going to be sick. You just destroyed your husband in front of 50 people. I think I'm going to be sick and cry. You're a secret billionaire. Jasmine. Bathroom. Now. We made it to the bathroom just in time. I spent the next 20 minutes alternating between throwing up and sobbing while Jasmine held my hair and whispered that I was the most badass woman she'd ever met. When I finally looked up, My face was blotchy and my eyes were swollen. "What now?" I asked. Jasmine's smile was fierce. "Now. Now we burn his entire world down." The media coverage started within hours. Venture capitalist's secret billionaire wife reveals identity at divorce announcement. Titan Holdings heiress taught high school art while managing billion-dollar empire. Marcus Chen divorces boss. Career in jeopardy. My phone exploded with calls. Reporters. Lawyers. People claiming to be long-lost relatives. I ignored them all. Jasmine set up camp in my South Boston apartment, the same modest two-bedroom I'd lived in for 6 years. The same place Marcus had always been slightly embarrassed to bring colleagues to. "You know what's crazy?" Jasmine said, scrolling through Twitter on her phone. "People are making memes about you. Look at this one. When your poor art teacher wife turns out to be Batman." Despite everything, I laughed. The twins kicked. I put my hand on my belly and felt them moving, alive, real. In 4 months, I'd be a single mother to 2 babies. The thought terrified me. But not as much as the thought of raising them with Marcus. My lawyer called on day 3. "Mrs. Chen, or should I say Ms. Monroe?" "Sophia is fine, Gerald." "Sophia, we need to discuss strategy. Mr. Chen's legal team has reached out. They want to negotiate a settlement." "What are they offering?" "Full custody to you. Child support. A confidentiality agreement. He's willing to walk away from the marriage with nothing if you'll agree not to terminate his employment." I stared out my apartment window at the Boston skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was panicking, realizing what he'd lost. "No," I said. "No. I don't want his money. I don't want his silence. I want him to face the consequences of his choices." "Sophia, I have to advise you that a prolonged legal battle will be expensive and—" "Gerald, I'm worth $8 billion. I think I can afford to make a point." Silence on the other end of the line. "Understood. What are your terms?" "I want full custody. I want child support based on his actual income, not whatever inflated number he's claiming. And I want him to continue working at Pinnacle Ventures." "You want to keep employing him?" "Yes. Because every single day, he'll walk into that building knowing his ex-wife owns it. Every promotion. Every decision. Every corporate restructuring. He'll know I could end his career with a phone call. But I won't. Because I'm not cruel, Gerald. I'm just educational." I could hear the smile in Gerald's voice. "I'll draft the response." Week 2 brought the corporate fallout. Victoria Lancaster sued for wrongful termination. The case was laughable. Fraternization clauses were explicit in her contract, but it kept lawyers busy. Marcus tried calling 17 times in one day. I didn't answer. Catherine Chen showed up at my apartment. "You're making a mistake," she said when I opened the door. "Marcus loves you." He was confused. The stress of his career. "Did you know?" I asked. "About Victoria?" Her silence was answer enough. "Get out, Catherine. And don't come back. Those babies are my grandchildren." "Those babies," I said, my hand protective over my belly, "will grow up knowing their grandmother chose status over family. They'll know she watched their mother get humiliated and said nothing. And when they're old enough to understand, I'll let them decide if they want a relationship with you." I closed the door on her shocked face. By week 3, Marcus's life had unraveled completely. Victoria dumped him. Publicly. Via Instagram post. "Not interested in damaged goods," she wrote. His colleagues avoided him at the office. Being married to the boss was bad enough. Being divorced by the boss was career suicide. He sent an email. "Sophia, I made a terrible mistake. I see that now. Please. Let's talk. For the babies. I deleted it. He sent flowers. I donated them to the hospital. He sent a letter. Handwritten. 12 pages of apology and explanation and begging. I filed it with my lawyer and never read past the first paragraph. Jasmine was worried. Soph, you're not eating enough. You're not sleeping. This revenge thing, it's eating you alive. I'm not taking revenge, I said. I'm just existing, living my life. If that happens to destroy his world, that's not my problem. Baby, that's the definition of revenge. No. Revenge would be firing him, blackballing him from the industry. Revenge would be making him suffer the way he made me suffer. Then what are you doing? I touched my mother's pearls. Felt their smooth, familiar weight. I'm teaching him a lesson. I stood in the boardroom of Titan Holdings, 37 weeks pregnant, addressing the 12 board members who'd been managing my mother's empire for 2 years. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for your patience during this transition period. They stared at me like I was an alien. I was wearing maternity jeans and a paint-stained sweater. I'd come straight from teaching. In this room of Armani suits and Harvard MBAs, I looked absurd. I know this is unconventional, I continued. But my mother built this company on the principle that character matters more than credentials. I intend to honor that. Robert Kim, the CFO, cleared his throat. With all due respect, Ms. Monroe, your mother had 30 years of experience. You're a high school teacher. I'm a high school teacher who's been watching you manage my inheritance for 2 years, I corrected. And I've noticed some things. I pulled out my laptop. Clicked to a presentation I'd spent 3 months preparing. Titan Holdings owns 127 commercial properties in Boston alone. 43 of them are in low-income neighborhoods. We charge market-rate rent. We evict families who can't pay. We contribute to gentrification while claiming to care about community development. Silence. My mother didn't build this company to be another soulless real estate conglomerate. She built it to create opportunity. And somewhere in the last 20 years, while she was focused on raising me, you all forgot that. What are you proposing? Asked Margaret Okonkwo, the only board member who'd actually smiled when I'd entered. I'm proposing we transform this company. Create affordable housing. Invest in community art centers. Use our properties to lift people up instead of pricing them out. That's not profitable, Robert said flatly. It's profitable enough. Our current ROI is 18%. If we shift 20% of our portfolio to community development, we'd still maintain 14% returns. That's more than sustainable. That's moral. You want to sacrifice profit for morality? Robert's tone made it clear what he thought of that idea. No. I want to prove they're not mutually exclusive. I closed my laptop. I'm not asking for permission, ladies and gentlemen. I'm informing you of the direction this company is taking. If you can't support that vision, I'll accept your resignation effective immediately. 3 board members resigned that day. I replaced them with an urban planner, a social worker, and a former teacher who'd fought for education funding in underserved communities. Marcus heard about it within hours. He called. I answered this time. Sophia. Mr. Chen. Don't. Please don't call me that. What do you want, Marcus? I heard about the board meeting. What you're doing with Titan Holdings. It's incredible. Thank you. I mean it. I've been doing research. The community centers you're planning. The affordable housing initiative. This is going to change lives. That's the idea. Silence on the line. I was wrong about you, he finally said. I thought you were ordinary. I thought you were holding me back. But you were building something I couldn't even understand. Yes. You were wrong. Can we meet? Talk. I want to be part of this. Part of what you're building. No. Sophia. No. Marcus. You had 8 years to see me. To really see me. You chose not to. You chose a blonde woman in a designer suit over the mother of your children. You chose status over substance. And now you get to live with that choice. I made a mistake. Yes. You did. And mistakes have consequences. I hung up. The twins kicked in unison. I smiled through tears. Your daddy, I whispered to them, is an idiot. But you too. You too are going to grow up knowing that a person's worth has nothing to do with their bank account, or their job title, or the clothes they wear. You're going to grow up understanding that power without compassion is just cruelty. And you're going to change this world. They kicked again. I laughed. Yeah. You're definitely going to change this world. The Pinnacle Ventures annual shareholders meeting. 200 corporate executives packed into the ballroom of Boston's most exclusive hotel. Crystal chandeliers. Open bar. Waiters circulating with champagne and canapes. I arrived 15 minutes late. Deliberately. Every head turned. I'd given birth 3 weeks earlier. Emergency C-section at 38 weeks. Ruby and Jackson Monroe. 5 pounds each. Perfect. Healthy. Mine. I'd also lost exactly 0 of the baby weight. Didn't care. Didn't try. I wore a simple black dress, not designer, not cheap, just adequate, and my mother's pearls. Marcus stood at the podium, mid-presentation about quarterly earnings. He saw me enter. His face went white. I smiled. Walked to an empty seat in the back. Pulled out my phone and started recording. As I was saying, Marcus continued, his voice noticeably shakier, Pinnacle Ventures has exceeded growth projections for the 3rd consecutive quarter. Our strategic investments in tech startups have yielded significant returns, and our portfolio diversification has. Excuse me. I didn't raise my hand. Didn't stand. Just spoke loud enough to be heard. I have a question. 200 faces turned. Marcus's jaw clenched. Ms. Monroe. We typically save questions for. I'm the majority shareholder. I'll ask whenever I want. I smiled sweetly. My question is about the investment in Neuraltech. The AI startup we acquired for $50 million last quarter. What about it? Did you disclose your personal relationship with the founder? Silence. You could hear champagne bubbles popping. There's no relationship, Marcus stammered. I pulled out my phone. Scrolled to a photo. Held it up. Marcus and a dark-haired man. Laughing. At a restaurant. Intimate. This was taken 6 weeks before the acquisition, I said calmly. That's Daniel Reeves, founder of Neuraltech. Also, apparently, your dinner date. That was a business meeting, Marcus said, but his voice cracked. Was the meeting at his apartment at 11 p.m. also business? I pulled up another photo. Because the building's security footage shows you entering his place multiple times between February and April. Always late at night. Always staying for hours. The room erupted. Voices. Gasps. Someone dropped a champagne glass. Robert Kim, who'd remained on the board despite our disagreements, stood up. Are you alleging insider trading, Ms. Monroe? I'm alleging a gross conflict of interest. Mr. Chen used his position at this firm to direct $50 million to a company owned by someone he was personally involved with. He didn't disclose the relationship. He didn't recuse himself from the decision. And when I started asking questions, he buried the evidence. Marcus gripped the podium. Sophia, you're twisting this. Daniel and I were friends. The investment was sound. The company's valuation. The company's valuation was inflated by 300%, I interrupted. I had it independently assessed. Neuraltech is worth maybe $15 million. We paid $50 million. That's $35 million in shareholder value destroyed because you wanted to impress your boyfriend. The word hung in the air. Boyfriend. Marcus's face went from white to red to purple. I didn't. This is ridiculous. The photographs are time-stamped. The security footage is authenticated. Your text messages, which I obtained through legal discovery during our divorce proceedings, are quite explicit about the nature of your relationship with Mr. Reeves. I stood up, walked to the front of the room, took the podium. Marcus stepped back like I was radioactive. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the room. You're probably wondering why I let this play out. Why I didn't fire Mr. Chen months ago. Why I've allowed him to remain employed despite our personal situation. 200 faces. Silent. Waiting. Because I wanted you all to see this moment. I wanted you to understand what happens when you mistake cruelty for strength. When you confuse ambition with character. When you think that appearances matter more than integrity. I turned to Marcus. You called me ordinary. You said I was holding you back. You divorced me in front of 50 people and recorded my humiliation for entertainment. You told me I wasn't sophisticated enough. Wasn't polished enough. Wasn't good enough for your new corporate life. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't wipe them away. But here's what you never understood, Marcus. I was never ordinary. I was just kind. I was never holding you back. I was holding you up. And the woman you threw away? She owned everything you thought you'd built. I pulled out a folder. Placed it on the podium. This contains your termination notice. Effective immediately. Legal cause, ethics violations, conflict of interest, and gross mismanagement of company funds. You'll receive 2-week severance, the legal minimum, and a non-compete clause that bars you from working in venture capital in Massachusetts for 5 years. His mouth opened. No sound came out. You'll also receive a separate notice regarding our divorce settlement. I'm granting you supervised visitation with our children. 2 hours. Once a week. At a location of my choosing. Child support will be calculated based on your new unemployment status, which means roughly $400 per month. Sophia, he whispered. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. You had months to be sorry. You chose pride instead. I turned back to the audience. As of today, Pinnacle Ventures is restructuring. We're divesting from companies that prioritize profit over ethics. We're investing in businesses that create real value for communities. And we're implementing mandatory ethics training for every single employee. I paused. This company will no longer be a playground for people who mistake ruthlessness for intelligence. It will be what my mother always intended, a force for good that also happens to be profitable. I picked up my bag. The meeting is adjourned. Any questions can be directed to our new CEO, Margaret Okonkwo, who will be announced formally next week. I walked toward the exit. The room remained silent. Until someone started clapping. Then another. Then another. By the time I reached the door, 200 people were on their feet. Standing ovation. For the art teacher who destroyed the corporate shark. Marcus stood alone at the podium, abandoned, exposed, finished. I didn't look back. Outside the hotel, I made it to my car before the adrenaline wore off. My hands shook so badly I couldn't get the key in the ignition. Jasmine, who'd been waiting in the parking garage, opened the passenger door and slid in. Holy fucking shit. I think I'm going to throw up. You just destroyed your ex-husband in front of the entire Boston corporate elite. I definitely think I'm going to throw up. Sophia. Breathe. Look at me. Breathe. I breathed. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Did I just do that? I whispered. You absolutely did. Was it too much? Did I go too far? Jasmine grabbed my face. Forced me to look at her. That man humiliated you while you were 7 months pregnant with his children. He threw you away like garbage. He chose his ego over his family. And you just taught him the most important lesson of his pathetic life, that actions have consequences. I feel sick. You feel powerful. And that's terrifying. But Soph, you earned this moment. You fucking earned it. My phone exploded with notifications. Twitter, LinkedIn, email, text messages. Venture capitalist exposed in shocking shareholder meeting. Sophia Monroe terminates ex-husband after ethics violations revealed. Billionaire art teacher delivers masterclass in corporate revenge. The headlines kept coming. Someone had recorded the whole thing. Posted it online. Within an hour, it had 500,000 views. By the next day, it would have 10 million. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Ms. Monroe? This is Marcus Chen. I almost hung up. I'm calling to apologize, she said quickly. For everything. For how I treated you. For not protecting you. For choosing my son's reputation over what was right. It's a little late for apologies, Catherine. I know. But I wanted you to know that I saw the video. What you did today. How you handled yourself. And I understand now why my son was so intimidated by you. Intimidated. He always said you made him feel small. I thought he meant you were holding him back. But he meant that your integrity made him feel inadequate. Your kindness made his cruelty obvious. Your strength highlighted his weakness. I was silent. My grandchildren, Catherine continued. Ruby and Jackson. I know I have no right to ask. But I would like to meet them. When you're ready. If you're ever ready. Why? Because they deserve to know all their family. The good and the bad. And because you deserve an ally, not an enemy. I can't undo the past. But I can try to be better going forward. I thought about my mother. About second chances. About teaching by example. One visit, I said. Supervised. At my apartment. And if you say one word about my furniture being too modest or my neighborhood being too working class, you'll never see them again. Understood. Thank you, Sophia. I hung up. Jasmine was staring at me. Did you just give the evil mother-in-law another chance? My kids deserve to know their grandmother. Even if she's flawed. You're too nice for someone who just committed corporate murder. I laughed. It felt good. Cleansing. I'm not nice, Jazz. I'm just educational. The nursery in my South Boston apartment, the same apartment Marcus had been embarrassed by, was painted in soft yellows and greens. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Ruby slept peacefully in her crib. Jackson was awake, watching me with those serious baby eyes that seemed to see everything. Your daddy came by yesterday, I told him softly. Supervised visitation at the coffee shop. He bought you a stuffed elephant. It was sweet. Awkward. But sweet. Jackson yawned. He's working at a non-profit now. Community development. Affordable housing. I think he's actually learning something about humility. About service. About what real success looks like. Ruby stirred but didn't wake. He'll never be who I thought he was. Never be the partner I deserved. But maybe, he'll be a decent father. That's all I can hope for. I touched my mother's pearls. 6 months ago, I'd stood in a penthouse and watched my marriage die. Today, I stood in a modest apartment and watched my children grow. The Peterson Community Arts Center had opened last month in Roxbury. Free art classes for kids who couldn't afford private lessons. Digital design labs. Professional equipment. Everything I'd wished for when I was a teenager dreaming of art school but couldn't afford the application fees. Titan Holdings had converted 23 properties into affordable housing. We'd partnered with local organizations to provide job training, childcare, and financial literacy programs. Pinnacle Ventures had restructured completely. We were now investing primarily in companies owned by women, people of color, and first-generation entrepreneurs. And I was still teaching high school art. 3 days a week. Because that's who I was. Not a billionaire. Not a CEO. An art teacher who happened to have resources most teachers didn't. You know what's funny? I said to Jackson. Your daddy thought money was power. He thought the right job title and the right connections and the right zip code were what mattered. Jackson grabbed my finger with his tiny hand. But power isn't about what you own, buddy. It's about what you do with what you have. It's about lifting people up instead of climbing over them. It's about building something that lasts longer than your ego. Ruby woke up, making that soft mewing sound that meant she was hungry. I picked her up, settled into the rocking chair, started feeding her while Jackson watched from his bassinet. Your grandmother, my mother, she built an empire in secret because she understood something most people don't. True power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It just exists. Quiet, patient, transformative. The afternoon sun painted everything gold. You too are going to grow up in a different world. A world where your mother didn't need revenge because she was too busy building something better. A world where justice isn't about destroying your enemies, but about proving that kindness and strength aren't opposites. I kissed Ruby's forehead. Your daddy learned an expensive lesson. I hope he remembers it. But honestly, that's not my concern anymore. My concern is raising you two to be people who treat others with dignity, who understand that every person has value, regardless of their bank account or job title or background. Jackson yawned again. I smiled. Yeah, I know. Mama's getting philosophical. But you'll understand someday. When you're older. When you realize that the greatest inheritance I can give you isn't money. I touched the pearls. It's character. Integrity. The unshakable knowledge that you don't need to diminish others to elevate yourself. Both babies were falling asleep now. I sat there, rocking gently, watching them breathe. Outside my window, Boston carried on. Traffic. Sirens. Life. Somewhere in this city, Marcus was probably thinking about what he'd lost. Somewhere, Victoria Lancaster was probably plotting her comeback. Somewhere, Catherine Chen was probably trying to figure out how to be a better grandmother. But in this moment, in this modest apartment with paint-stained carpets and second-hand furniture, I had everything that mattered. 2 beautiful babies. A mission to change lives. And the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd won without becoming cruel. That was the real victory. Not the corporate takedown. Not the public humiliation. Not the reversal of fortune. The real victory was that I'd looked at the man who'd hurt me, the system that had enabled him, the culture that had celebrated his cruelty, and I'd chosen to respond with transformation instead of destruction. I'd chosen to build instead of burn. And that made all the difference. Ruby and Jackson's second birthday party was held at the Peterson Community Arts Center. 50 kids from the neighborhood. Balloons. Cake. Face painting. No marble. No champagne. No corporate sharks. Just families celebrating. Marcus attended. Brought his boyfriend Daniel, who'd apparently survived the neural tech scandal and was now running a non-profit tech training program. Sophia, Marcus said, approaching carefully. Thank you for inviting us. They're your kids. You get to celebrate with them. He looked older, softer around the edges, less polished. Better. I've been thinking about writing you a letter, he said. A real apology. Not asking for forgiveness. Just acknowledging everything I did wrong. You don't need my forgiveness, Marcus. You need to forgive yourself and do better. He nodded. I'm trying. The non-profit work. The therapy. Being honest about who I am. It's all part of trying. Good. Ruby ran over, paint on her face and joy in her eyes. Daddy. Look. I made a picture. Marcus knelt down. It's beautiful, sweetheart. What is it? It's our family. See. There's Mama, and me, and Jackson, and you, and Daniel, and Grandma Catherine, and Auntie Jazz. She'd painted us all as stick figures holding hands. All of us. Together. Marcus looked at me. His eyes were wet. She has your heart, he said quietly. She has our resilience, I corrected. Yours and mine. The good parts we both have, even if we couldn't make it work together. He stood, picked Ruby up, spun her around. She giggled. Jackson ran over, demanding equal spinning time. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw the man I'd loved. The boy from college. The dreamer. He was still in there. Buried under years of ambition and ego and fear. But there. You saved me, Marcus said later, as the party wound down. That day at the shareholders' meeting. You destroyed me. And you saved me. I didn't save you, Marcus. I just stopped letting you hide. Same thing. Maybe it was. Maybe that was what love looked like after it died and was reborn as something else. Not romance. Not partnership. But witness. Seeing each other clearly. Honestly. Without illusion. And choosing, despite everything, to keep building. I touched my mother's pearls. Thought about the woman who'd worn them while running a billion-dollar empire from a modest house in the suburbs. She'd understood something I was only beginning to grasp. Power isn't about what you take. It's about what you give. And revenge isn't about destruction. It's about transformation. Every betrayal, every moment of feeling small, every time someone underestimated you, these aren't endings. They're pressure. Creating diamonds. And if this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength, if it showed you that power and kindness aren't opposites, share it. Share it with someone who needs to remember that being underestimated is temporary, but character is forever. If this story gave you chills, if you felt that moment of satisfaction when Sophia revealed who she really was, if you believe that the best revenge is living well and building something beautiful, smash that like button. Tell us in the comments, what's the most satisfying comeback you've ever witnessed? When did you see someone underestimated prove everyone wrong? And of course, subscribe for more stories like this. Stories about justice, transformation, and the quiet power of people who refuse to be diminished. Because here at Life Stories, we believe that every ending is really a beginning. And every pressure creates its own diamond. See you in the next story.